70 years ago tonight, lightning struck the Hill Valley Clock Tower, and the clock hasn't run since. But more importantly, 40 years ago this past summer, Back to the Future came out. And ever since then, we've all loved Doc, Marty, Lorraine, George, Goldie Wilson, and all the other citizens of Hill Valley. But there were a few that we've loved without ever learning their names. Welcome to the D-List, the show where I list things and my name begins with a D. But I don't know what letter these characters' names begin with because these are my top 10 unnamed Back to the Future characters.
Well, you're my... Who are you?
Number 10, the cop.
Evening, Dr. Brown. What's with the wire?
Okay, so the Hill Valley police officer doesn't have that much screen time in the film itself. Most of his best work comes in deleted scenes. First, he observes Marty ostensibly harassing a citizen and does basically nothing about it.
Pinch me. Shame on you. Yeah, that'll do. Thanks a lot. It's definitely not a dream.
And later we see him inspect the so-called permit that Doc gives him.
You aren't going to set anything on fire this time, are you, Doc?
So he not only barely does anything when Marty seems to be a potential threat, but he knows that Doc has a history of causing real damage, but he looks the other way as long as he gets his take. He is a much more accurate depiction of cops than officers Reese and Foley.
She's clean. That means we take her home.
Look at these two being helpful. What's that all about?
Who are you?
Number 9, the other Starlighters. Look, Marvin may be the front man, but the rest of the band deserves their props too.
Reginald, where your keys?
Okay, the drummer's named Reginald, but the other members are unnamed and they're awesome.
All right, guys, listen to this blues riff and B. Watch me for the changes and try and keep up, okay?
Hey, guess what, you condescending bastard? These guys have no problem keeping up with you.
Never ever learn to read or write so well.
And in a movie where so much of the humor is based on facial reactions, these guys have some of the best. It's also really fortunate that all of these actors were available again for part 2 and able to reprise these roles. Which is more than can be said for all of the main characters.
Who are you?
Number 8, Blast from the Past saleswoman. She may not do much in the movie, but I love how committed she is to the job.
It has a dust jacket. Books used to have these to protect the covers. Of course, that was before they had dust repellent paper. And if you're interested in dust, we have a quaint little piece from the 1980s.
Now, what is it that draws you to this item? Sports? We don't have any other, sports equipment in stock, but, oh, the dust jacket? The dust interests you? That's gotta be it. Dust all the way. Well, I have the buster for you.
It's called a dust buster.
It's like her tone is so confident, but she's just grasping at such tenuous connections, she must be desperate for that upsell. And if you're interested in desperation, I have a quaint little piece from 2025. It's called Riffin' with Doggins Volume 1 on DVD or digital download. See? I can desperately upsell too.
Who are you?
Number 7, Wilbur's wife. She only has one line, but she sells the hell out of it.
Listen, you gotta help me.
Stop Wilbur!
Okay, sure, Marty looks a little odd, but what is she so panicked about? Does she also think Marty is an alien? Has she been reading the same comic books that Sherman Peabody has? Or have the Peabodys already called her to warn her about the guy, and Wilbur, in his good-naturedness, was about to give this poor alien a chance anyway? Was Wilbur ready to be the Elliot to Marty's E.T.? This is a trilogy full of big characters with big emotions, and yeah, she is one of the biggest and the best. The palpable fear in her voice is so strong that many folks have misheard her line as, "Don't stop or we'll die."
Don't stop Wilbur! Die!
And the misheard line inspired one of the greatest bands of all time. Rest in peace, Harris.
Who are you?
Number 6, the Barbed Wire Salesman. The barbed wire salesman is played by Richard Dysart of The Thing and LA Law fame, but more important to me, of the LA Law scene in the Mickey's 60th birthday special fame, and the Gemini Man pilot but not the series, and yet he still has higher billing in Riding with Death for his flashbacks to the pilot than the actor who played his role in the actual episodes that make up Riding with Death fame.
Now that makes sense.
He sees depressed Doc and immediately clocks his issue because apparently selling barbed wire town to town makes you an expert in human psychology.
It's a woman, right? I knew it. I have seen that look on a man's face 1,000 times all across the country.
But even with all his barbed wire wisdom, he underestimates how true Doc and Clara's love is.
All I can tell you, friend, is you'll get over her.
Oh, Clara is 1 in a million.
I will say he's a little less forward of a salesperson than the woman at Blast from the Past. He's not pushing the barbed wire on anyone, he's just casually mentioning it. And if anyone's interested, they can ask him more, but he's not really going into the sales pitch directly.
I have peddling this barbed wire all across the country has taught me one thing, certain. It's that you never know what the future might bring.
And look, if there's one thing I've learned from How to Use Classroom Films, it's that barbed wire was still pretty novel back then. The haunting acoustic barbed wire theme. Didn't learn much about How to Use Classroom Films, though, but maybe you will if you watch my riff of How to Use Classroom Films. It's available on this channel, or it's available on Rippin' with Doggins Volume 1, because I am a much pushier salesperson than Richard Dysart.
I can assure you, sir, there are other women.
But the whole exchange sticks with him so much that he just can't help but babble about it at full volume on the train the next day.
That poor fella last night had the worst case of broken heart I have ever seen. When he said he didn't know how he could live the rest of his life, knowing how much hurt he'd caused that little girl, well, I really felt for him. I did, right here.
First he butts into Doc's business, and now he makes Doc's business everyone else's business, which ends up being fortunate in these very specific circumstances, but come on, dude.
Clara.
Excuse me,
Ma'am?
but was this man tall with great big brown puppy dog eyes and long silvery flowing hair?
I do like how he immediately recognized that affectionate description. Maybe the salesman also has a little crush on Doc.
You know him.
While the character is unnamed, it has been theorized that this is actually a portrayal of modern barbed wire inventor Joseph Glidden. It's theoretically possible, but unconfirmed, and therefore he is still an unnamed character and eligible for this list.
Who are you?
Number 5. The Video Game Boys. These kids discover a Wild Gunman arcade cabinet, which is impressive considering the game was only ever released on console, but you know, maybe the Cafe 80s is just making retro style cabinets for games that never actually had them. Either way, Marty's still a crack shot.
I'll show you, kid.
One of these kids is played by an actor named John Thornton, but yeah, we know you're here for the other one.
I'm a crack shot at this.
Yes, Michael J. Fox and Elijah Wood share the screen here, before they would eventually both go on to be directed by Peter Jackson, alongside an Aston.
You mean you have to use your hands?
Elijah is no doubt particularly distressed that he has to use his hands because he knows that he's destined to only have 9 fingers.
That's like a baby's toy.
Even though by this point Biff has already told Marty that he's gonna grow up to be a loser, this is Marty's first time getting a taste of what it feels like to be the out-of-touch old guy. He's used to getting skeptical looks because he's ahead of the curve, but not this time. This time he's the fossil.
Baby's toy.
He seems to take it in stride, though. He seems to mostly think it is the children who are wrong.
Who are you?
Number 4, the CPR guy. The credits call him the CPR guy because he's the guy who doesn't know what CPR is.
What's CPR?
But he has a different, more singular focus that we all remember more about him.
Hey, did you just take his wallet?
God, I've been this guy, trying so hard to contribute based on the one piece of information I have, repeating that one thing over and over again until anybody acknowledges my existence.
He just took that guy's wallet.
I acknowledge you, CPR guy. I acknowledge your concern over Biff's wallet.
I think he took your wallet.
Now, the novelization did actually give this guy a name, Lester. And fair enough, he looks like he could be a Lester, but he's not named in the film, so I'm still counting him for this list.
I think he took his wallet.
Who are you?
Number 3, the Battle of the Bands judge. Yes, the first obstacle we see Marty face in his quest to become a rock star.
Hold it, fellas. I'm afraid you're just too darn loud.
It's so simple, but it's such a good joke. Not only that a rock band can put all this effort into a performance only to be cut off before they even start singing, but that a rock band can be too darn loud to play in a battle of the bands. And according to Bob Gale, this was Huey's own pitch.
My recollection is that this idea that they get rejected by playing too loud was Huey Lewis's idea.
That's right. It was Huey.
It's the stupidest reason to reject anybody, and of course...
But I think it's something that actually happened to Huey at one time in his career.
Right.
Yes, it is funny that the rock and roller who wrote the song Marty's playing is saying the role of the old square who doesn't like the song, because I guess it's not so hip to be square anymore. But what's actually the funny part is that Marty actually takes it hard.
Next, please. Where's the next group, please?
Marty clearly takes this rejection more seriously than he takes Strickland's abuse. Granted, live adaptations just roll this character in with Strickland.
You're a slacker, McFly.
I am sorry, but that was just too darn loud!
But it's noteworthy how despondent Marty is over this. He's not just disappointed about not getting to play in the Battle of the Bands, he's actually taking this rejection and this criticism really personally. He's not just like, that old judge, he's a loser, what does he know? He doesn't have good taste in music. He is actually thinking he's not good enough based on the taste of this guy. But, rejection over stupid reasons is still rejection, and we all know Marty has inherited way more of George's insecurities than he wants to admit to himself.
What if they say, get out of here, kid, you got no future? I mean, I just don't think I can take that kind of rejection. Jesus, I'm starting to sound like my old man.
I guess being dismissed sight unseen, even by someone whose taste Marty should have no reason to respect, is just too much for the poor kid at this point. So it actually shows remarkable growth when, later on, in the past, he just takes it in stride when the 50s kids aren't ready for it yet. Yeah, whatever. I don't care what you kids think. It's not like you have a megaphone or anything. And to a lesser extent, blowing off the kids who think his video game is a baby's toy also shows that growth. So Huey Lewis may be the most powerful character in the trilogy. He can give Marty an identity crisis despite on paper having no reason to.
If this is on MTV, I'm finished. Are you kidding? History. Huey, what happened to Huey Lewis? I don't know. He did the little bit part and nobody ever heard of him again.
Who are you?
Number 2. The Clock Tower Lady. An old lady is looking for donations for historical preservation, and she gives out a flyer that later has essential information.
30 years ago, lightning struck that clock tower, and the clock hasn't run since.
It's almost a disservice to think of her as a minor character considering how essential she is to the events that unfold, but she still doesn't have a name in canon.
Save the clock tower! Save the clock tower!
She's preventing the clock from getting repaired and preventing Marty and Jennifer from kissing. I'm not the first to say it, but she is a real clock blocker.
Mayor Wilson is sponsoring an initiative to replace that clock.
Yeah, the central joke here is that, it's pretty absurd to fight to keep a non-functioning clock in the middle of town square, and if progress really is the mayor's middle name, wanting to get everything up to date is, pretty reasonable for him, actually. But this old fuddy-duddy wants the clock to stay broken for historical significance.
We at the Hill Valley Preservation Society think it should be preserved exactly the way it is.
But look, she knows a thing or two about history, considering a relative of hers was on the Titanic. Alongside a relative of Biff's henchman Match.
Please, I have a child!
Of course, in the musical, they actually swapped it so that there were no plans to fix the clock tower, but she's fighting to restore it to its full glory, which, as I've mentioned, is thematically stronger, but not nearly as funny.
Who are you?
And my number 1 favorite unnamed Back to the Future character, the Western Union Man. SCTV legend Joe Flaherty reunites with his used cars filmmakers for a memorable scene at the end of part 2, appearing as a threatening figure.
I've got something for you. A letter.
But it turns out he's there to give Marty hope when all seems lost.
It's from the dock!
This is one of my favorite scenes in cinema history. As far as Marty knows, this time he really is stuck here. Until this mysterious stranger comes in with the good news. It is so cathartic for Marty and the audience, and probably significantly less so for the Western Union Man himself.
Actually, a bunch of us at the office were kind of hoping maybe you could shed some light on the subject. See, we've had that envelope in our possession for the past 70 years.
Just think, this guy drove 2 miles out from the nearest town on a stormy night to finally get an answer to this 70-year-long mystery, and absolutely nothing was clarified. He delivered the letter and heard a bunch of gibberish about someone being alive, and then the recipient just ran away.
We had a little bet going as to whether this Marty would actually be here. Looks like I lost.
Do you think when he got back to the office, he just trashed the receipt and was like, no, Marty wasn't there. I win the bet. But then he got in trouble for misplacing the package and he ended up getting fired? Or do you think he was completely honest about what happened and none of the coworkers were satisfied either and office morale just plummeted and the event left him so shaken that he moved to Michigan and so did Biff, and then they raised the next generation of freaks and geeks?
Never did! You all right? You need any help? There's only one man who can help me.
Truth is, we don't know what happened to this guy after this. Well, we do know one thing. We know that Joe Flaherty reprised the role in Family Guy's Empire Strikes Back episode, so there's that.
Are you Luke Skywalker?
Yeah?
I've got something for you. A letter.
And that's my favorite unnamed characters from Back to the Future, but which one is your favorite? Let's discuss this in the comments, and if you like this video, you might like the only other 2 videos I've released on this channel this year, because they're also lists about Back to the Future, about the songs in the musical. I've been riffing on the other channel, but on this channel it's just been a lot of Back to the Future listing. Not next month though, next month we'll be listing for Decemberween. And until then, this is Dave, signing off.